welcome to Saturday Night at the Movies, the podcast that celebrates classic, cult, and current films, and the people that made them, and many other aspects of pop culture. I'm your host, Steve Rubin. Our producer is Ben Shrewsbury, and our signature theme was composed by Greg Lerhoff. Here it's always Saturday night, and our mission is to chronicle film and pop cultural history, one memory and one film at a time. Tonight, we celebrate one of the great legal dramas of all time, 1957's 12 Angry Men, which featured the feature directing debut of Sidney Lumet and the excellent writing of Reginald Rose, who first brought this to audiences on the small screen. Joining me to toast this timeless classic is my former boss, public relations executive Stan Rosenfield, who previously came to the show and celebrated the best of director Billy Wilder, and one show totally devoted to our favorite Wilder classic, Stalag 17. He calls me Hoffy, I call him Hoffy, but that's another story. Welcome, Stan.
Thank you, Steve. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. And it was very nice of you to call and say we should do a show on 12 Angry Men because it was music to my ears. First question I want to ask you is, have you ever served on a jury?
No, but one of the reasons uh, it came to the front was I was supposed to serve on a jury starting last week. And I got to thinking about it. I loved 12 Angry Men. I think I will watch it again. And this was the third time. I've seen all three versions. Back in the day, you were not even an idea in your parents' mind. Uh, this was before streaming and all the thing. Grown-ups would sit at home and watch plays on TV in black and white, Playhouse 90 and Westinghouse Theater and things of that nature. And that didn't really have a whole lot of appeal to me. I like situation comedies like Bob Newhart, not Bob Newhart, that came later, but
Bob Cummings?
Bob Cummings and people like that. But on this particular night, I decided to sit and watch this play with my parents, and it was 12 Angry Men. And I was a big fan of Bob Cummings, and I was just mesmerized by it. I just thought, this is incredible. That was in uh, let's see, 1955, I believe, or maybe 54. And 1957, which was the year I graduated high school, uh, the movie came out. And I remember exactly, couldn't wait to go see it because I loved the play on TV. And I went to see 12 Angry Men with our good friend Lee J. Cobb and Jack Warden and uh, Martin Balsam. And of course, it starred Henry Fonda as juror number 8. And I was just hypnotized by it. And I thought, this is good homework if I'm going to be on a jury, which I was not. I didn't have to go down there. It was postponed to July 23rd or 21st. And I had seen all three, uh, all three 12 Angry Men. I wasn't in love with the Jack Lemmon one because I thought it was too similar to the Henry Fonda. And I was hoping a little different, but it wasn't. But it was still Jack Lemmon, who can do no wrong. And
As you know, I was the unit publicist on that film, and I was sitting on the couch one day with Jack, and I know his filmography really well. But I turned to him and I said, Jack, I'm really a big fan of the wackiest ship in the Army. And he looked at me like I was absolutely nuts. He was speechless. He thought I was going to say 12 Angry Men, The Apartment, uh, the China Syndrome, but he was a delightful man. And one of the things about doing the remake, and I'm sure the same challenge faced all the guys in the originals, is a lot of dialogue. I mean, this is a heavy dialogue movie. There are no special effects in 12 Angry Men. It's 12 guys jabbering at each other for 2 hours. And I saw basically an actor under pressure because Billy Friedkin was directing. and Jack was playing the Henry Fonda role. It's ironic because they had obviously worked together many times. They had been in Mr. Roberts together. But it was fascinating to be on that set, particularly learning things about some of the actors who weren't well known at that time. One of the jurors was played by James Gandolfini, and James Gandolfini was virtually unknown. In fact, I brought the Today Show on the set to do interviews, and he said, "What do you want to talk to me for? I'm a nobody." Well, James Gandolfini, his next role was Tony Soprano. End of story.
He became a somebody, but
He became a somebody, but this movie is the original. Well, I know it's technically not the original. The original was the teleplay, but the 57 version, we live in a country now which is beset by all sorts of problems, particularly in the legal system. And here was an example, a real close, it was probably my first, and I saw it on television where you actually saw it in the movies, but it's my first brush with how the legal system works. And I know that the film got a few, little few brickbats from some legal specialists who weren't impressed by the presentation of evidence, but it was a way of seeing how a jury and how the legal system works. And I was interested to know that this movie is actually shown to corporate executives for training on how to work on a team and to work together. So this movie has gone way beyond just being an entertainment vehicle.
well, uh, thing I found interesting when I was doing some research after you and I talked about coming on the show, uh, and this is a trivia question, and there of the three versions, there is one actor that was in two of them.
Well, actually, there were two actors who were in two of them because I think both Joseph Sweeney, who played juror number 9,
Uh-huh.
and George Voskovec, who played juror number 11, are in both the original teleplay version and the 57 version.
Well, I hate to um, point out when you made a mistake, and I'm not going to because you didn't, because those two actors were indeed in both of them, and usually uh, when somebody like Joseph Sweeney is usually that character is given very little to do because he's older and but he went toe to toe with everybody.
Oh,
He was
absolutely.
incredible.
Absolutely. Let's talk about this cast, which by the way, this was a United Artists release, 1957. This was the year of the Bridge on the River Kwai, so they won most of the awards that year.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, 12 Angry Men was nominated for Best Picture and a couple of technical awards, didn't win anything. But it was not only starred Henry Fonda, but he produced the film
Mhm.
as well, and it apparently was not a happy experience for him. He did not like the producing pressure of trying to get the film released properly. And United Artists, from what I gather, kind of dropped the ball a little bit. They put it in some big theaters. It's a small picture, um, and it did not make a profit. Now, interestingly, I believe both Henry Fonda and Reginald Rose deferred salary in hopes that the movie would make a profit and they could get paid. Well, according to IMDb, the movie did not make a profit and neither actors got paid. So,
Wow.
which is, but of course, I'm sure Reginald got a rights payment for his teleplay, being the source material. But Henry Fonda, one of his best roles, did not make a dime on this movie, which is amazing to me. But let's pull up some pictures of people on
Sure.
this show because I think it has one of the great casts, and of course we have to start with Henry Fonda. Henry Fonda, one of Hollywood's most revered actors, and as juror number 8, as those of you who have seen the movie recall, he's the only one who thinks the defendant might be innocent. I've got to pull up a picture. And for those of you who are only listening, I apologize. This is for the YouTube channel, which can show video, but I'm going to put up a picture of the little boy, or not a little boy, he's a teenager, but this is the boy who was accused of the murder of his father. And I still remember um, this is a movie that has very little soundtrack music to it, very little. There's a little bit at the beginning and there's a little bit at the end, but virtually the whole movie is shown without any type of musical soundtrack. But there is a little bit of music as the jurors are filing out of the courtroom and into the jury room. Lumet puts a camera on this teenager, and the look on his face is this is not a hoodlum type kid. This is a kid who's scared. He could be facing the gas chamber, and it was quite a moment, and I think a memorable moment. Do you remember that moment, Stan?
I do indeed. Yes.
And then of course you got Henry playing juror number 8. Although we do learn at the very end that his last name is Davis. The only two people who identify themselves at the end are Henry and Joseph Sweeney, who's Mr. McCardle. Um, tell me what you were thinking about when you were watching this just recently prior to your jury duty.
Well, I was thinking that I was wondering whether Henry Fonda really said that I need to see evidence, hard evidence, or as he said in the movie, I just think we should talk about it. And I was thinking, wow. And the thing that I still is a little confused over is when the scene where the coming down and they were lifting the kid up so he could come down with the knife into his in the chest. And I was still, even right now, I'm still a little confused on that.
Well, Jack Klugman, who I think is one of the glorious actors in this piece. I mean, Jack was one of those actors who just sells it. He's a kid from the neighborhood, so he knows about switchblades. And I think his point was that you don't use a switchblade
This way.
that way, going down on a man. You kind of hit it horizontally into the
Yeah.
chest. It's a flicking motion. So one of the key moments in the whole deliberations is him putting to bed the idea that there was and of course it mentioned that the boy was considerably shorter than his father.
Yes.
So it would be impossible for him to stab downward anyway because his father was taller than him. So it made more sense that he would be shivving it or shoving it into the guy's abdomen in a horizontal
Well,
manner.
did they determine, and I don't remember this because it's been a while since it hasn't been that long, but um, was he stabbed this way or was he stabbed that way?
That's a really good question. I don't think they ever talked about the wounds. They
Hmm.
never talked about the wounds. I have a feeling in 1957 parlance, it may have been considered a little too graphic to describe the wounds on the body. There's so many moments in this movie that are so fascinating to watch. One of my favorite moments is one of the first things that Henry Fonda brings out about the timing and by the way, the beginning of the movie, if those of you who've seen it, and I won't try to give away any spoilers here, but some of these guys are in a hurry to get out of there. They
They're
think
all
this
in
is,
a hurry. They're
yeah,
all in a hurry to get
yeah,
out. Jack
this is
Klugman, and who has the Tony Danza role, he's got a ball game to go to that night.
Jack Warden. No, no, absolutely. Jack Warden has baseball tickets
Yes, he
burning
did.
in his pocket.
Yeah,
He's
to
ready
go
to go see the Yanks
and
and Cleveland.
Baltimore
I
and
think it
and the
was
ball,
I
the
think it was
Baltimore
Cleveland. No,
Braves.
Cleveland.
Baltimore.
No, Cleveland.
Are you sure?
I'm sure because Baltimore is Jack Klugman's team. He's no, no, not Jack Klugman. Edward Binns. Eddie Binns is the guy who says he said Warden turns to Binns and says, "You Yankee fan? No, Baltimore." And Warden looks at him like, "What? I mean, what's so good about Baltimore other than their groundskeepers?"
Yeah.
No,
Well,
it's Yanks in Cleveland. Believe me, I've audio taped this movie. I used to play it in high school before I went to bed, So I've listened to this dialogue almost a thousand times, and Reginald Rose, you can't say enough about his writing skill, and he became, he is talked about in the same conversation as Paddy Chayefsky and writers like that, and it's a great written script, and it is timeless. You can, aside from the fact that there are 12 men on the jury, that probably would not happen today because women can be on juries too, um, of all ethnicities. And when did the remake at Showtime, one of the key factors was adding four black actors to the mix. Um,
Well, one of the things that just seems to be overlooked a lot is that if you have a murder trial, it's not realistic that those jurors think that they can get all their work done in one day. It's just not going to happen. I mean, if you look at the tr trial of Diddy, I mean, how long did that go on? Uh,
it, weeks.
and
No,
it,
absolutely right. Look at OJ.
and it's still going on, and so so I don't know. I do think the end of the movie, I don't want to ruin it for you, but that the end when Henry Fonda and uh, uh, Joseph Sweeney have that very brief conversation on the steps. I thought that was a perfect ending for
Yes,
the.
absolutely. And it's still daylight out. You know that Jack Warden is going to get to his ball game on time. Uh, it's it's it is a perfect, and then they bring the music back, which is good. So we're going to go around the table. We're going to start. I have pictures of all the key players, so we can talk a little bit about each one. We're going to start with juror number one, which of course is the foreman, and it's Marty Balsam.
Mhm.
Marty Balsam, just it's so funny because today I was on another person's podcast. We were talking about one of the great thrillers of the 70s, The Taking of Pelham 123. And we were talking about Marty Balsam's character, that Marty had a tendency to be a very accessible everyman type. He wasn't an actor who was overarching or just very demonstrative. He's very kind of low key and intellectual. And he's the foreman, and I've always liked him. He's kind of a guy you could go out to lunch with.
Mhm.
Did you ever meet Marty Balsam?
I had lunch with him one day.
Oh, tell us about that.
No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
It was a great setup, Steve. Uh, no, I actually saw Marty Balsam briefly in a movie last night with Audrey Hepburn
oh, what movie was
and
that?
George Peppard.
George Peppard and Audrey Hepburn.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think. Is that Barefoot in the Park? No, no.
Breakfast at Tiffany.
Oh, Marty Balsam's in Breakfast at Tiffany's? I did not realize that.
He played the the studio guy or the head guy. I mean, he is. There was a scene where they uh, roll back a curtain and he's making out with uh, uh, maybe it was Audrey Hepburn. It was Marty Balsam.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. It's funny that as much as I admire Audrey Hepburn in that movie, every time Mickey Rooney comes on screen, I want to scream. I don't know what Blake Edwards was thinking, but something went wrong between the time they cast Mickey Rooney and the time he gave the performance. It's just for those of you who haven't seen Breakfast at Tiffany, Mickey Rooney is cast as a Japanese neighbor, but not a nice, person, a screaming neighbor who just the to say it's a caricature of a Japanese person is one of the great understatements of all time. But we
Yeah,
we distract ourselves now.
yeah. Disco lightly, I protest.
So Marty Balson was the foreman. He has to keep all these guys under control because, and by the way, I think this is a volunteer. He volunteers to be, nobody assigns you to be foreman. You kind of volunteer for it. And then juror number two is John Fiedler. Now, John Fiedler is such a sweet little mousy kind of guy. I mean, we've seen him. He's kind of a Wally Cox type of an actor, a guy who is your basic kind of a good guy, but kind of a bit of a shrinking violent, but a guy who eventually does say what he means. I loved him.
But he had a scene where he said what was on his mind, and he was very succinct and was very impressive.
He was
So
very impressive, and he's sitting next to Lee J. Cobb, juror number three. I'm just thinking. Let's see, three, four, five. So, yeah, it's juror number three. I'm just looking. I remember the table configuration very well. He's sitting next to Lee J. Cobb, and of course, we've got to bring up Lee J. Cobb, one of America's great actors. I've seen so many versions of Lee J. Cobb, but a fiery actor if there ever one's. 3 years earlier, he had played the longshoremen leader in On the Waterfront, and if anybody needed to get angry on screen and start yelling, Lee J. Cobb was your man.
he was the guy. In fact, he got nominated. Is that correct?
Nobody got nominated for a movie so rich in acting. Nobody in 12 Angry Men got nominated.
I thought he had gotten nominated. My mistake. Um, but I'll tell you that I don't want to ruin the movie for those who haven't seen it, but it's a performance worth going to see, just to see Lee J. Cobb, the two of them, Lee J. Cobb and Ed Begley. Uh, you wouldn't want to meet either one of them at night by yourself.
Well, Lee J. Cobb, it's funny. I think before I watched 12 Angry Men on television, Lee J. Cobb plays James Coburn's boss in the Our Man Flint movies. So it's
Mhm.
more of a comic role. So my first brush with Lee J. Cobb was more as a comedy actor, a kind of a frustrated boss, the kind of the little lighter side of M from the James Bond movies. But Lee J in this movie plays juror number four. Let's see, is it three? No, juror number three. The role played by George C. Scott in the remake. And I mentioned earlier that I sat on a couch next to Jack Klugman and kind of embarrassing myself by mentioning the wackiest ship in the Army. George C. Scott, I had a little fun with. I turned to him at one point on the same couch. I said, George, I was in your trailer. I noticed there was a Bible at your table. Do you read it often? And without breaking a character, he said, every goddamn day.
That's funny.
Right out of Patton. So yeah, he was fun. He was fun. Okay, so we move on. Sitting next to Lee J. Cobb is we have another very intellectual actor, and that, of course, is E.G. Marshall. And E.G. Marshall.
Excuse me, you have to do this when you say E.G. Marshall.
And
If you
Stan,
see
for
the
those,
movie, you'll know what
Stan,
I'm talking
for
about.
those who are listening, Stan just took his glasses off and kind of rubbed his nose a little bit, which is a key plot point in 12 Angry Men. But E.G. Marshall, I believe it was a little bit later, became a major TV actor on a TV series called The Defenders, which you remember with
Uh-huh.
Robert Reed. And he's as tempestuous and turbulent as Lee J. Cobb's juror number three. Juror number four is controlled and low key, but very, very much in listening to every word.
There was a great line in there at some point early on, is when somebody says to the Lee J. Cobb character, "Don't you ever sweat?"
Oh,
And
no, he says it to the E.G. Marshall character.
that's what I meant.
Yeah,
I said Lee J. Cobb, I meant E.G. Marshall.
yeah, no.
Don't you ever sweat? But
He's
there was a scene toward the end where uh, I think it was Henry Fonda said to E.G. Marshall, Cobb, and Ed Begley, why are you three? What is it about this that you three are so dead sure that this kid is guilty? And E.G. Marshall, just so cool, without sweating whatsoever, said that you bring up some very good points. but there was an eyewitness which you have not dealt with. I
Right.
think it was eyewitness.
Yeah, which leads, of course, to Joseph Sweeney making his observation. So, Lee J. Cobb, excuse me, E.G. Marshall is juror number four, and sitting next to E.G. Marshall is the aforementioned Jack Klugman, and
Mhm.
he is juror number five. And as I mentioned earlier, Jack plays kind of a kid from the neighborhood. You know, they're talking about gangs, they're talking about switchblades, they're talking as if they know something about it, and they really don't know much about it. Jack Klugman is from the neighborhood. He knows about switchblades, and he's a really it's a very low key part for him, not a showy part, but he fills out that jury very good. I really thought he was terrific.
He was.
Have you now you've been a publicist in this town for many years. Have you met any of the 12 Angry Men, Stan?
Let's see. I met Henry Fonda. Something is going to happen because my phone just rang and I didn't answer it. I had met Henry Fonda. Uh, I've met Ed Begley. In fact, I was with Ed Begley the night he died.
Really?
Hmm.
Tell us about that.
Um, I worked for this guy named Jay Bernstein,
Right?
and Jay used to have these dinner parties up at his house, and he would have, 5, 10 clients, and they were very fun affairs. And Ed was up there with his wife. I had a conversation with him earlier that evening, and he went into the kitchen on something and dropped. And his wife was with him, and they covered him up with a blanket. Uh, they tried to get a hold of his priest or somebody to give him last rites.
What
They
about an ambulance?
Well, he was already dead.
Really? So he literally dropped dead.
He literally dropped dead. Um, there was somebody up there that I think had a medical background who said it's done. He's not. There's no pulse. He's not breathing. Um, his wife had come in and kind of had taken charge. And I remember Jay Bernstein got up and just said, "Listen, we have a situation. Uh, Ed Begley has apparently had a fatal heart attack. Please, nobody go into the kitchen." And finally, the ambulance, he had the last rites, and the ambulance came and uh, whisked him off. And I did tell Ed Begley Jr. the story. Uh, and I thought that as a PR person, this is terrible, but I'll say it on me anyway. As a PR person, I thought we owed it to him to announce his passing on one of the top columns uh, in the paper. Um, I thought we owed him that to give him the dignity of the PR, which we did. Um, he was a super nice guy, very, he was just a super nice guy, very friendly. And I just remember my conversation with him. And, I mean, it's a terrible thing if you're Mrs. Begley to have to deal with that. Ed Begley Jr. was not there. But to go home because we all kind of left early with that on your mind. It was not fair. It was not fun.
So you met Henry Fonda, you met Ed Begley. Who did you meet any of the other 12 Angry Men?
Uh, I might have met Robert Webber,
Robert Webber.
um, who was not. Uh, I have no great stories to tell about Robert Webber. I might have met him. I don't know, but that was it. Just Jack Warden. I've met, but I don't remember the circumstances. Obviously, the circumstances on Ed Begley is even to this day is hard to not remember.
No, no, I hear you. Um, so moving around the table, we come to Edward Binns. And
Hmm.
Edward Binns is someone often in the trivia question of who's in 12 Angry Men, they forget his name. But Eddie Binns was Very, very good character actor. I think I first saw him, at least my first memorable thought is he plays Walter Beadle Smith in Patton. He's kind of Omar Bradley's number two, and he's the one who has to tell George C. Scott's Patton character that he's in trouble because of all of his slapping and bad habits. But Binns plays juror number six, and he's very defensive of the old man, the Joseph Sweeney character. He doesn't like the way people are treating Joseph Sweeney, particularly the bigot, Ed Begley, who plays the bigot. And I thought it was nice that he came to his aid. And I like Binns. And as I mentioned earlier in the remake, this part is played by James Gandolfini.
Now, if you listen to enough radio commercials and TV commercials, uh, Ed Bag, Ed Benz was the voice of commercials. He did more voiceovers in commercials. Who was that guy? Oh my God, that's Ed Benz. It was just he was wonderful.
So moving to the table, we talked a little bit about Jack Warden. And I've always been a big fan of Jack Warden's. Jack Warden is a salt of the earth actor. I think the first time I ever saw him, he has a small part in From Here to Eternity. He plays somebody who's sympathetic to Monty Clift's Pruitt character. He's the one sitting at the breakfast table when they say they're dynamiting down by Wheeler Field, and he turns to the clock and says, "Mighty ambitious for a Sunday morning before 8 o'clock." And then, of course, Pearl Harbor's about to happen. But I also remember Warden in a classic episode of The Twilight Zone called The Loner, where he plays a convict on an asteroid who the pilots who come and ship out his supplies every few months give him a present of an android. I don't know if you remember that episode, Stan, but it's a classic.
Well, that's one of my favorite all-time shows is The Twilight Zone. I have to this day certain key uh, uh, favorite episodes, 50 Yards Over the Rim being one of them.
Cliff Robertson, sure.
And uh, I mean, Rod Serling was, uh, once I learned to pronounce his name correctly, it wasn't Sterling, it was Serling.
There's still a lot of people who still pronounce it Sterling. I have to get you a copy of my encyclopedia of the Twilight Zone. I think you'll have some fun with it.
I
Um,
think I might have it.
well, maybe I've already given it to you. Yeah, also, Warden could play comedy very well. He's hysterical as Max Corkle, the trainer in Heaven Can Wait, who's friendly with the Warren Beatty character. It's just when he comes out to the house to meet Warren Beatty when he's in the guise of Mr. Farnsworth, the billionaire, it's very, very funny. It's very, very funny.
Well, I thought of all the characters, uh, all the 12, I thought Jack Warden nailed that character. I got to get to the ball game. I mean, it's just he just nailed that character because we all have to be somewhere that we don't want to be where we are. And he just, I don't know, it just, maybe it was the hat, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
and he's one thing that Lumet did with this indication in the setting was it's hot in there. The fan isn't working.
mhm.
It's I think it's a steamy day in New York City. It's humid out. I guess it's about to rain heavily. And Jack's character number seven is very frustrated that it's so hot. And at one point, he gets the fan to work, I guess when the lights come on, because they've been deliberating for a while. And then he crumples up a little piece of paper and throws it at the fan, and it hits Joseph Sweeney's character, the old man, in the head. And it was just a crazy, crazy little moment. It was just one of those
Well,
moments. Okay, so we've gone to he's juror seven. We've talked about Henry Fonda being juror eight, the one man who feels that there might be some innocence going on. And then we've talked a little bit about Joseph Sweeney as the old man, who's great. And then sitting next to Joseph Sweeney is Ed Begley. And Ed Begley, as we've talked about, sadly, you were present at his death, sadly. but Ed Begley was a powerful actor at that time. Um, I remember him a few years later was in a terrific Clint Eastwood movie called Hang 'em High, where he
Mhm.
plays one of the guys who originally tries to hang Clint Eastwood. But Ed Begley was more of a salt of the earth actor. Again, great. And then next to Ed Begley is George Voskovec. And George Voskovec is is I guess you'd consider that the diversity element of that 12 Angry group. He plays a European, and there's a great deal of prejudice against immigrants. Of course, this should not be a subject that is uh, unknown today. But I thought George was a dignified man, played a dignified man in juror number nine. Um, Actually, let's see. Let's see. I think he's juror number 10.
Ed Begley was jury number 10.
Oh, Ed Bergen was test. So he's juror number 11. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
And George, as you pointed out, was in the original teleplay where Bob Cummings played the Henry Fonda character. I like George, very good. Jurors juries today are made up of all different people from various ethnicities. And as I mentioned earlier, in the remake with Jack Lemmon in the lead, they cast four black men: Michael T. Williamson from Forrest Gump, Courtney B. Vance, Dorian Harewood, and Ossie Davis, all of whom lent good talents to the roles. And then the final juror that we'll mention is Robert Webber. And it's funny because I often forget. Sometimes I think it's Gig Young, but it's not Gig Young. It's Robert Webber. And I got to find a picture of. I thought I had a picture of Robert Webber. Uh,
We'll just put up a picture of Gig Young, and
put up a picture of Gig Young. I'll just put up the group, and you can see Robert Webber right in the middle there. That is Robert Webber.
he's
Uh, Next to Henry Fonda. He's the advertising guy. He's the one with all the sayings. He's also the one that is playing tic-tac-toe with Ed Begley when Henry Fonda walks over and says, "This is not a game." And he chastises them for playing tic-tac-toe. Henry Fonda is just a mountain of dignity in this role. And the way think of the situation. Here's a man who says there might be some innocence there. It's 11 to 1. There's no way he's going to convince 11 guys to change their verdict. And that's the challenge. And for those of you who've never seen 12 Angry Men, we're not going to give away how he does it, but there is a great, terrific teleplay here that became a great feature script. And a great character study. This is the type of movie that Hollywood needs to make more of today. Would you agree, Stan?
I would 100% support that. Yes. Um, in fact, not that this was even before I knew I was going to come on the show. Um, I started watching this again because I'm getting ready to go down for jury duty in a few days, and I just wanted to get myself in the mood. And I was going to watch maybe 10 minutes of it, maybe 15, and I ended up watching the entire movie. I was mesmerized. Uh, I thought Lee J. Cobb, I couldn't wait till he would, or excuse me, come back. What to see what colloquialism Robert Webber was going to come up with. Run it up the flagpole and see who salutes it. I
See
mean,
who salutes it.
it's so advertising thing. There was one line in the movie that if I had a little issue with. It was toward the end um, when Fonda is talking to Jack Warden, and Jack Warden says, "No, it's something like, no, no, he's guilty. That's it." And then a little while later, nothing had happened, and Warden, I'm changing my vote.
And
And
that's when George Voskovec says, he says, why? And I don't have to tell you why. No, you have to tell us why. And it's this battle between this European immigrant character who has a great deal of dignity and Jack Warden, who has these baseball tickets burning a hole in his pocket. And George points that out. It's a great little moment. When you are asked to serve on a jury, I think the first reaction when we get those little notices in the mail is, "Oh no, the last thing I want to do is change my schedule and have to go on jury duty." But this is a great responsibility. This is what our democracy is all about. This is something where how often, unless you're drafted into the army, how often are we called upon to perform some kind of civic duty? And if anything, this movie serves the purpose of showing how much responsibility each and one of us have. Now, obviously, we're not all going to be assigned to a murder trial. More often than not, it's a lighter crime. But I think that this movie wasn't designed to do a service, it was designed to entertain. But in many ways, I think it makes serving on a jury a very important position.
Mhm.
And we've had a lot of jury stuff lately. I mean, Clint Eastwood recently directed a movie about a juror, and there's been that TV series, Jury Duty, which has a little comic side. And I have to say it, I'll throw out a plug. My writing partner, Billy Reback, and I, we've written a spoof homage to 12 Angry Men. We've written 12 Anxious Men.
Uh-huh.
And it's very goofy. It's like Monty Python meets 12 Angry Men. It's the most dysfunctional jury of all time. Two of the jurors are conjoined. And of course, one thinks the guy's innocent, one thinks the guy's guilty. And it's filled with twists and surprises. And we wrote it not only because we wanted to write something that was fun, but logistically, it only takes place pretty much in one room. So I don't have to have an army of trucks and hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on this, that, this, that, this, that. It's one room. So that's one of our goals.
Well, 12 Angry Men, basically 99% of the movie was one room.
One
Uh,
room.
the
No,
opening
exactly.
scene was the courtroom and the steps at the end.
And I have one picture for those who are watching on YouTube. I have a behind the scenes shot where you actually see the camera in the jury room. It was obviously a set, so they could move the walls out, and that's very key in this because you have in fact, I'm looking at this picture, and this is not from 12 Angry Men, the Sidney Lumet movie. This is a behind the scenes shot from the Bob Cummings teleplay version because there in the middle is Fran Chatone. So
Mhm.
I just realized it and seeing it up close. I think Bob Cummings may be on the right, facing. Yes, this is probably the moment in the movie where juror number 3 and juror number 7 have their confrontation scene. Interesting. And I think George Voskovec's there on the left, has a little more hair there, perhaps. Well,
Let's
this is
see.
this has been a lot of fun, Stan. I mean, this is a movie that I'm sure you and I will probably see many times again, because at a time when our movies have a tendency to be a little bit too frothy, it's nice to put some heavy calories on the plate and watch a movie like this.
Well, if you see me leaning in there, I have my cheat sheet here. I have the cast of all three movies with their jury number.
Ah,
So I go down there and see who's next you're going to talk about. Um, the um, uh, the key thing on the Henry Fonda version that I loved was it had a Perry Mason moment when E.G. Marshall takes off his glasses and Joseph Sweeney is saying, well, how do you get those? Because I'm not going to ruin it for you, but that's a key. That's an evidence destroyer.
oh
That
yeah, no, that
takes
was
away, that whole scene takes away any doubt of the accused being not guilty, I think.
We so love talking about the classics. You and I had a lot of fun talking about Stalag 17 and the films of Billy Wilder. I think that Hollywood has to work on its storytelling. I think we really have to get back to good storytelling. And it doesn't have to be Batman 6, Star Wars 7. I think we need to go back to getting originals made that tell important stories. And, the 1950s was a time when there was a lot of controversy on it. It was the time of the blacklist. This was filmed during the period of the blacklist, which would not end till 1960, when Kirk Douglas gave Dalton Trumbo his credit for Spartacus, and Otto Preminger, I gave his credit, I think, for the Exodus movie. Um, but these kinds of movies are very much of their period, but they don't get old. They just don't get old.
Well, I was talking to uh, people, as I do all the time anyway, and invariably I'll be asked what my favorite movies are, and you know what they are, Steve, because you and I have talked about it enough time, and uh, I'll say Stalag 17, and somebody asked me, what is so good about Stalag 17? I said, okay, let me just put it out there. And I know we're here to talk about 12 Angry Men, but I'm going to devote the next 90 seconds to talking about Stalag 17. You got a spy movie. You got somebody who is spying on their fellow Americans, and we don't know who it is, and we don't find out who it is till 70% of the movie is over. And the people they think is the spy ain't the spy. And we don't find that out either. I mean, it took the obvious thing and kept it a secret. It was really great.
If you've never seen Stalag 17, everybody, run. Don't walk to your latest streaming channel. I'm sure it's playing somewhere, or pick up the DVD. It is wonderful. If you're a William Holden fan, as Stan and I are, this is William Holden at his finest. He actually won the Oscar that year for Best Actor, beating out Burt Lancaster and Montgomery Clift from Here to Eternity. And it's just a wonderful role. Isn't that right, Hoffy?
It's right. Two packs of cigarettes says Dunbar never leaves the compound.
You
You
start.
starting it again? Mhm. I
Somebody
called it
step on
last
that.
time.
Somebody step on that crumb.
I called it last time, didn't I? Somebody step on that crumb, uh,
we we
that
can
bomb.
we can
Somebody.
we can do the whole movie. Harry, Harry, I'm blind. Harry. How stupid can you get, animal? Well, we won't continue to do this. Otherwise, we're going to drive everybody nuts with our dialogue from Stalag 17. The movie tonight was 12 Angry Men. If you've never seen it, it's a true joy. If you haven't seen it recently, watch it again. You've been watching Stephen J. Rubin, Saturday Night at the Movies. I'm your host, Steve Rubin. Our producer's Ben Shrewsbury. If you like our show, why don't you give us a nod? We like good nods. Subscribe. It's free. It's one of the few things left in life that's free, and we certainly enjoy presenting it. I'm on a second podcast, which you may not know about, called Tales from Hollywood Land, which I co-host with Julian Schlossberg and Arthur E. Friedman. That's also available on your favorite podcast platforms. And as always, we thank you for listening and watching today. Thank you, Stan.
My pleasure. Thank you, Steve, for asking me to be on your show.
You're quite welcome.